After living in the Inland Empire for a few months, Kathy and I finally got to take our overlanding gear out. We really hadn't had it out since we arrived in June, having come here from Montana. We'd done some outdoor adventures, but we really hadn't brought our trailer or our rooftop tent. Now, it's only sort of overlanding on this trip because we went to a national park and camped in an RV park outside of the national park. But still, for us, it was just wonderful to break loose our overlanding gear and actually get it out on an adventure. Now, to explain where we're living now, we are in what's called the Inland Empire. So it's here in this area east of Los Angeles, and we're actually living in the town of Ontario, California. Now, from here, we had to drive, as you can see, a little over 4 hours. There were a couple of possible routes to get to where we went in this trip, which is the Sequoia National Park. In general, there are quite a few interesting places to visit from the Inland Empire. The only problem is, as I kind of see here on the map, in order to get out of the Inland Empire, you either go through the gap in the San Jacinto Mountains on I-10, and from there you can get out into the desert and see Joshua Tree National Park. The Anza Borrego Desert is farther south towards San Diego, but also again east on the other side of the mountains. But there you have to go through that gap, which usually isn't too bad. If you want to go up anywhere up 395, where there are all sorts of beautiful things there on the way up toward Yosemite and beyond and Tahoe, you have to go through the gap here for I-15, which is almost always congested and at times extremely so. Now, in this particular trip, the typically recommended route is you go up north of Los Angeles and actually north of the San Fernando Valley. Again, you still have to get through the mountains, but it's not as bad. You get up around Santa Clarita and you can basically get on the 5, and from there you eventually do fall off the 5, as you can see here. Go up through Bakersfield, and if you want to get, for example, to the Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon, and we ended up camping in Three Rivers in an RV park, it's actually not that bad a drive once you escape the Los Angeles area. All right, well, this really is our first use of the full-on overlanding gear since we've been out here in California. So we got a few hour drive ahead of us. Just going to stay in an RV park up by Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks. So we'll see how it goes. I actually went a lot faster than I had feared, because here I keep the camping gear all in the trailer because I'm not using it as my utility trailer. And then I basically just, change the water in the jerry cans, things like that, a few other odds and ends. Load up the truck, load up the trailer, and off we go. And when we come back, the gear goes right back into the back corner of the garage. So we'll see how it goes. We don't really need to use the camping gear. It's an RV park. Could just use a ground tent or rent a, get a hotel room or something. But this is what, here it is, mid-October. I've been here since February. In 8 months, this is my first time really using the overlanding gear to go camping here in California. Now, I should explain, we camped in an RV park because this is basically an extended weekend. I left Thursday after work, left work a little bit early, took Friday off, and we had to return Sunday. So we didn't want to be driving around looking for dispersed camping sites. Plus, we thought our odds of finding one that close to Sequoia National Park were pretty slim. So we kept it simple. It was more of a re-shakedown of our overlanding gear, as well as an opportunity to see the Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon before winter set in and there'd be too much snow to get up into the mountains. So the actual RV park is just outside Sequoia National Park. As the lady at the desk explained, it's about 20-30 minutes to the gate of the park from this RV park in Three Rivers, but then about another hour or so to get to the big trees. So you can take these beautiful roads up. You come along Lake Sequoia. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. And then you get into Three Rivers. Now, California has some, to me, very interesting geography and geology. So this map doesn't really do it justice, but you're already nestled into mountains that are sort of, I guess, maybe the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. So you can't really do the Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon without at least appreciating some of the local geography. So the sequoias only grow in a narrow band on the western slope of the Sierra Nevadas, where it's not too dry, but not too wet, not too hot, not too cold. It's part of what makes it such a fascinating area. And California itself has a number of these mountain ranges. So I keep learning more and more about it as we live out here. So there are the coastal mountains, there's the Central Valley, and on the route up, we primarily drive through the Central Valley, Sacramento Valley. It's got more than, kind of split it in the middle and give it two different names, but it's basically just one big Central Valley. And then you come up to the foothills and then into the Sierra Nevadas themselves. So there is a whole area of study. I'll put an interesting link in the description, kind of getting to the point of, why are the Rocky Mountains so far inland when the subduction zone of the tectonic plates and all that is at the Pacific zone? So if you're wondering, isn't it weird there are so many mountain ranges in the West Coast? Yes, it is weird. And there's some very fascinating geology that goes into that. So we drove in last night. We didn't video a lot. So I've got the coffee going. Let's go in with a simple setup this morning. We'll probably use this as our base camp for a few days. Well, a couple days. We came in on Friday, yesterday, Thursday afternoon. It was dark when we arrived, which we kind of knew it would be. Set up camp in the dark. Today's Friday. We'll try and hit Kings Canyon and or Sequoia National Park today and tomorrow. Probably not any serious overlanding or off-roading. Probably just seeing the sights and hiking. And looking at some really big trees.
Perfect. Would you like a map?
Yes, please.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Take the far right lane. You're free to enter the park.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Yes, pull right out.
At 2 miles an hour. What a video. Very good. And this is, as Kathy thought, should be our first stop. Once you get to the giant forest, is you stop at the little museum, restroom break, check out the museum, and then we'll see about whether we drive or hike to General Sherman. Things that I found interesting: sequoias are shallow-rooted. They typically die by falling over in wind or heavy snow. They think they can find pollen back to about 4,500 years, and they do have an extremely tight range of tolerances that they can live in. So it has to be wet enough, cool enough, not too cold. And that's why there's this little band here. They said I think 30 of 75 groves are right around here, and that they are pretty much unique to this area of California. And they grow fast. I didn't know that either. So they removed all of the development in the area to protect the trees, partly because they are shallow-rooted. And so just having a bunch of people walking around and driving around apparently tends to damage the trees. So those were all my things I never understood about sequoias. Is what's the difference between a redwood and a sequoia? They both have sequoia in the species name. What's which are taller, which are bigger, which grow where in California. So nice little walk to the museum. It explained all that. The tall, narrow redwoods are more coastal. The giant, large diameter sequoias are here in this little band at the right elevation of the Sierras on the western slope of the Sierras. So quite a small little area where they thrive. That's great. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, she's funny. You know, with the people in the shot, it just gives you a sense of the scale. So that's, as it says, an average size sequoia. So what was the name of this, Kath? Big something, Big Hill Trail? Was that Big Hill Trail? Is that what we're on? Bear Hill Trail. Which splits off of, B-A-R-E, Bear Hill? B-E-A-R.
Yes.
Which splits off from the loop trail that's asphalt. We'll go back down to it and then probably finish that loop.
Wow. Take a look at that tree that fell. And then they just cut it across the...
Yeah, and that's a redwood, right? Yeah, that's a good point. And you saw that same, that one looked like that one fell uphill.
Yeah, isn't that
Oh,
weird?
yeah. That's its narrow peak there, and it's at the bottom of a sequoia. Wow. So what do you think so far?
I think my blood was on it.
Yeah, like I was narrating to the GoPro earlier, everything now is icing on the cake. Would I drive 4 hours just to see one of these? Yeah, I would. They're like amazing. Everything else we're doing is just kind of fun. That's good. Do you mind looking back at me? So that's like a not remarkably large sequoia. And there you are as, reference. So when I thought I knew about sequoias, I didn't. This trail kind of reminds me of the Little Belt Mountains, some of those nice little Forest Service trails. And there's a few people on this trail, but you kind of feel like you got the place to yourself. Oh, look across there through the gap. You can see the other peaks. Such a beautiful area. Not just the, you're in the Sierra Nevada, so everything is beautiful. The drive up to the national park is beautiful. Got some kind of beautiful rock outcropping here as we hike the trail. Thank you. As we hike the trail toward the General Sherman tree. Again, today's not too crowded in the park, but it is, you can hear by the cars zooming up and down the road. It's not rare. But as soon as you go on the non-asphalt trails, it seems like then you can really enjoy some solitude and some of the amazing beauty of the park. And this one's only a couple miles. It's got some grade change, but I think Kathy's already a little bit pooped before we started, but you're doing fine. And I was feeling my hips before we started, but...
And you didn't take any Advil?
Not yet. No.
That is my disapproving frown. That my wife disapproving frown.
Failing to take vitamin I in a timely manner.
Yes.
Don't worry. I'm just commenting that this is Rimrock Trail. And right over there's a sign that says this is Rimrock Trail. Now from right there it looks like this is just a fallen log. If you look on top, you see that it's well worn from foot traffic. And you see, we followed that trail that continued thinking, oh, someone hiked around. And you can go all the way up. At this point, it's not really bouldering, but it's definitely some scrambling to get across there. And this is where Kathy is. Yeah, hold on to that tree behind you. That'll work. Yeah, just grab hold of that and walk backwards at that point, I suggest, or sideways. And then we saw people walking, and I'm like, well, there's the trail we're trying to pick up. And Gaia GPS showed it to me. And I'm like, how are they going to get back?
Don't do what we did.
Yeah. This is the correct way. So another absolutely spectacular vista. Hopefully Kathy's still happy with me that instead of driving to General Sherman, we're hiking, and it's mostly the Rimrock Trail. We obviously made it much more challenging than it should have been, but it is gorgeous. And there we go. There's the Alta Trail and this trail.
Lincoln.
join at the Lincoln Tree.
Wow.
And that is a big one.
You think that's 30 children?
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you're right. I was telling Kathy, I remember my 5th grade teacher told us, and we got up in the classroom, and there were about 25 or 30 of us. We all held hands and made a circle. She said, that's how big around the giant sequoias are. And I was like, whoa. We're all like, whoa, that's really big. So that's one of the first ones we've seen that I think is, yeah, that's probably pretty close to 30 5th graders holding hands. We have definitely sooted up your backside scurrying where we were walking around the trail. What are you doing? Oh, can a human fit through there or just the stick? See, Randy Newman was so wrong. Short people do have a reason to live. So I've got to say, based on staking around here, stay off the asphalt if you want to enjoy Sequoia National Park. It's okay, I mean, this isn't bad, but compared to the walk we had, seeing countless sequoias and groves, versus if you parked in that parking lot, came here, and looked up at General Sherman, you'd be very disappointed. I mean, there's just no comparison. This isn't nearly as amazing as what we experienced by hiking up. As I commented to Kathy, there's a lot more trees if you go along the Rimrock Trail. You are up against many more just gorgeous sequoias. The Alta Trail stays at the top of the ridge, so it's a much easier walk, fewer elevation changes, and you still do see some amazing sights. But you don't see like, wow, I'm standing in a grove of giant sequoias. You see less of that here because other than here, we've dipped down a bit. Through most of the trail, we're staying on top of the ridgeline. So it's just a different type of beauty. And you still see giant sequoias, but you see a lot of exposed rock, and the valleys kind of fall away from you. Other people were commenting about how much burn damage there is, and the museum explains they've learned that they have to do controlled burns of the I guess I'll call it the undergrowth. It's really like the mat of needles, etc. Because if that doesn't clear, apparently, I think I said that earlier as I was narrating, the seedlings can't germinate. picture we never take. One of us standing in front of the sign. Anyway, the nice park ranger lady told me crosswalk in front of the visitor center, and I forgot that I was standing in the visitor center. Okay, we're good. This does look like a very easy trail. So today we are in Kings Canyon National Park, which is right adjacent to Sequoia, and we're going to go see the General Grant tree. Mostly we're just stretching our legs. One thing worth mentioning is I couldn't get the Wi-Fi in the ranger station to work long enough. They told me it was pretty intermittent. And from the campground, I did not specifically verify that Gaia had downloaded the Kings Canyon portion of the map. So yesterday in Sequoia, I didn't have to worry about anything because I had full Gaia maps. Now I did download the Garmin map, which I use with the InReach, but it doesn't show you the park features. It just shows you roads, topo, things like that. So I was fine with that, but crossing the road, and I didn't finish that thought. So I had downloaded the Gaia maps, and I had them for all of Sequoia National Park. I didn't double check before we left this morning that it also had Kings Canyon, and it didn't. There's some sort of a boundary in there that Gaia goes from one map to another. So the GPS is working, it plops me right where I am, but it's utterly useless because it doesn't have any of the local features or trails. So lesson learned. Every morning that should be part of a routine. This morning I did remember to grab the Garmin, stick it on my belt, so when we have no cell coverage we do have the ability to SOS or send a text message. But I did not double check the maps on my phone to ensure that I would have the local map once I was out of cell phone coverage. Yeah, I think that's true. Here on a Saturday, Kings Canyon seems less crowded than Sequoia.
Also, I don't
was on a Friday, that is.
Yeah, I don't see a Sequoia grove.
I would agree.
You did in Sequoia Forest.
Yeah, I would agree. This is a very different experience. Like we've walked much farther and seen far fewer Sequoias than we did yesterday, just walking either of those trails, the Rimrock Trail or the Alta Trail. And this is interesting, so now we got a little bit of asphalt. Oh, okay, this is just that same kind of sign they give you everywhere about why it requires forest fires to keep the Sequoia groves healthy. So I'm just slowly becoming aware that I think I am now standing at the base of General Grant. So like the General Sherman tree, you're like, oh, I mean, obviously it's amazing, right? But if you'd hiked the trails we did yesterday surrounded by Sequoia groves, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that one's bigger than the others. But there were like a ton of them. I'm just going to go a little farther, see if we can see these amazing stables. I can hear the bird, but I can't see it. It's doing like, I don't know if the microphone's picking it up. It's an interesting call. It's almost like an African click language. I was finding out that was very interesting. It describes the brothers who built the cabin as later living inside a fallen sequoia. And I thought, well, I suppose that makes sense. You can carve a canoe out of a log. Why not a cabin if the tree is big enough? This is like on the other trails. What was more amazing to me is when you have a clump of a giant sequoia all next to each other. Just the visual impact of...
It makes you lose the perspective. It's like, oh, look at those 5 or 6 trees all clumped together.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Like they look normal next to each other. But then you're like, no, that's not normal. That tree is a forest in a single trunk. I don't know if Stables is the name of the clump of trees. I was assuming we were going to see the cavalry stables up here.
Yeah, I think those little creatures are schools into their views being upright and not happy.
You know, I'm usually like the person who's tediously curious about everything, but I got to admit, ground squirrel taxonomy is one that I'll pass on. I'm just saying. It's not criticizing. Not criticizing you. Just saying. Just saying. It's not something that I would pursue. A word to the wise, if you're ever here, and even if you just drove the asphalt and parked and walked over to General Grant, take the trails that are around General Grant. This is the one that just says to the stables. So you walk up from the gambling cabin and keep going. And now I'm kind of glad we did. This is really quite striking. This is reminiscent to where we were yesterday. Since you worked so hard to hike all the way up here, I think the federal government owes you a pony ride back down to the car. So there you go. There are stables up from the General Grant Trail. It does have its own parking lot. I don't know if visitors are allowed to drive up here. That might be park rangers only. Looks like they've got themselves a cabin up there. And judging by the amount of dried horse apples we saw, apparently there are horse trails maps we have, and there's maps posted on the board there. We're pretty sure our best bet is just to backtrack, which fortunately is almost all downhill. And it's all very beautiful. And then we'll head back to our car, probably use the restroom, grab a drink, and like I said earlier, feel no qualms whatsoever about spending the rest of this afternoon in the car. I am so glad I paid attention. The GoPro almost got me. It wasn't recording. So repeating everything we just said, that's a mama and two fawns. Kathy was coming down the hill, and all I saw was a four-legged animal pop from behind a tree, and I was stop. I thought it was a wolf or a predator, but it's not. And you can see how tame these deer are here in Kings Canyon. They must be so accustomed to being around people, they don't feel threatened much at all. But shall we proceed?
Yes,
Very
I
good.
see some people very far away.
Yeah. Well, again, the mama and her fawns don't seem particularly threatened by us, so, and we kind of have to walk past them, so hopefully they won't spook. Yes, was that, I've lost track, that was this morning driving in, right? When the two deer, one went across our path,
Yep.
The other sprang back up. It was like, had to be a 10 or 15 foot sheer rise. It was just so impressive to see. You know, you forget that these are not remarkable deer. They're not my Midwestern whitetail deer, but whatever they are, they're just your regular old garden variety deer.
They are dirt-covered, colored deer.
And their ability to leap is something we don't appreciate until you see them threatened. And then it's like, whoa. That's the cabin from coming down from up above. Kathy is not interested in the cabin. She's interested in the chipmunks.
Squirrel size.
Squirrels, sorry. I was just laughing with Kathy that especially when you go uphill versus downhill, but you know, you go on a trail and you feel like, oh man, that was such a long time. So again today I forgot to track on Gaia, even though the map's not there. It still would have allowed me to track our hike, and the map would fill in later. But I laugh at myself when I do Gaia that way, like to trek out. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm drinking water like 5 times. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna head back now, and it's like, boom, I'm there. Like, wow, that was absolutely nothing. But for whatever reason, the trip back is always so easy. And it's the psychology of the trek out, you know, because you don't know where you are, and you know, you just feel a little more stress.
Plus it was uphill more.
I did see, yeah, like this is obviously downhill more, so it's less strenuous. But even when it's not, I catch myself that way all the time. Like, oh man, this hike, oh. And then I'm done, and I turn around and go back, and I'll just bebop along and realize it was absolutely nothing at all. Today that my crew photographer gets motion sick when she tries to use the GoPro while we're driving. So this part of the Kings Canyon Scenic Byway is very straight, so I'm just going to grab the GoPro, stick it out the sunroof, and as we get up a bit, we'll be along the river, and you can really see just how gorgeous this is. Now we just went from Trail's End, so that's where it ends in a loop, and you just circle back. I think it's California 180, and you just basically turn around and go back the way you came. You notice these signs that say bump? Yeah, they're real. Okay, St. Clair Catholic Mission in Three Rivers, California. There's Kathy kind of walking up toward it. So there's a sort of a retreat center here. I'll pull up the website and I keep forgetting, I think it's run by Franciscans. Yeah, St. Anthony Retreat Center. And their Friars Chapel. They do daily mass, and on Sunday they do a 4 p.m. Saturday vigil, 9 p.m. St. Clair's Mission here in Three Rivers, California. And so there we go. This is St. Clair Catholic Mission. And this is where Kathy and I will do Sunday service. And there's Kathy presenting it. And it is a spectacular view looking out. So quite awesome. I'm going to put away the camera and head into Mass early.
Thus says the Lord, the heavens are my throne, the earth my footstool. What house can you build for me? Where is the place of my rest? My hand made all these things when all of them came to be, oracle of the Lord. This is the one whom I approve, the afflicted one crushed in spirit, who trembles at my word. Well, after church on Sunday, Kathy and I tore down camp and headed back to Ontario, California. I'm not sure when we'll next get the overlanding gear out. Hopefully soon, maybe here before Thanksgiving. Now that the weather has cooled off, we can get out into the desert, and we'll probably at least visit Joshua Tree National Park and maybe get out to Death Valley. But in any event, it was a wonderful trip and some truly unique places among the most beautiful in the world. I highly recommend, if you're ever in the area, make sure you get out to Sequoia National Park in Kings Canyon.